We're talking about section 2.4, complex numbers. First thing there, make sure on Edpuzzle you've already watched the video on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. If not, do that already. We're going to simplify the following ones here. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is to simplify this complex number. I'm going to simplify this. This is the same thing. Since 4 is a perfect square, we know we're going to get 2 there. But that negative there, we know how this is. So if you just know that the square root of negative 4 is just a 2i, that's perfectly fine to leave it like that. If you want to kind of write it out, certainly you can write out to the fact that I've got a negative 1 and a 4. And we know that this part's going to be I and this part's going to be 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. And we know then that that's going to be 2i. If you, of course, just know what that is and you just want to write that as 2i first, 100% fine. Negative 50 is not going to work. So what I'm going to do here is I need to write two things out. We know that this is the same thing as negative 25 times and then negative 2. This would give me 5i. So that negative, just like we did up here, that negative 1, which is there, that's the I, and the square root of 25 is 5. And then this is just simply radical 2. So we can simplify it that way. Last one down here. Same kind of thing. We know that this 24 is going to be, you could divide evenly with divisible by 4, and I'll just use negative 4 here. So, but we need some perfect square. So I get negative 4, and then I've got a positive 6. And so if I simplify that, then we know that kind of like what we talked about just up above, up here, that would be like a 2i and then radical 6. So as long as you're careful where that negative is, if you know that there's a negative, you know there's going to be an I, then you can kind of forget about it until you write the answer like that. So we're going to kind of utilize this, and we're going to solve this one. Now, this one's not going to be factorable. And you could try it. You could say, okay, well, it's going to, what would multiply to a 15 and then add to a negative 2? So don't tell me, negative 5 and 3, because that's negative 5 and 3 is not going to multiply to a positive 15. So either both numbers are positive, both numbers are negative, and you can't ever get that. So that's not going to work. But what we can do is we can always use the quadratic formula, and that's the advantage of using that. It's going to work for all of these. Now, in order to do this one, I have to find make sure it's in, it's everything's equal to 0, which it is. So A, that's always the number in front of x squared, that's 3. B, that's negative 2. And C, that's going to be a positive 5. And I have to go ahead and use my formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 ac, and that all is over 2a. So there's my formula. So wherever I see a b right here and here, I'm going to replace it with a negative 2. Wherever I see a here and here, I'm going to replace it by 3. And wherever I see a c right there, I'm going to replace that by 5. So in this case, negative b. So I have a negative, and then I replace my b, which is that negative 2. So this minus or negative goes here, and then I replace that negative 2. Then I have plus and minus. That's two different answers. I'm going to take that b squared, get from right here. So negative 2 squared minus 4 times a times c. So a in this case is 3. And then c in this case is 5. And then the whole thing is being divided by 2 times my a, which is 3. So then I simplify this. So minus a negative 2, that's a positive 2, plus and minus, then the square root. You can type this exactly as you see it underneath the square root. That's fine. Or you can square that. So negative 4, 2 squared is just a positive 4. And then minus, so I've got 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5 gives you 60, excuse me. So I get 60. And on the bottom, I get 6. And when I simplify this, I get 2 plus and minus negative 56 over 6. And we can simplify that even further. So that's going to give me 2 plus or minus. I can break that down to be negative 4 and then 14, like this. And then what I can kind of do at that point then is, just a little more room here. That would give you 2 plus or minus, that would give me 2i, and then a radical 14 over 6. Now the last thing I'm going to do is this number here, and this number. All of these you can divide by 2. So if I divide that by 2, 2 divided by 2 will give me 1. Plus and minus, this would give you 2i divided by 2 would be a 1i, or just an I. radical 14, and then 6 divided by 2 would give you a 3. Now, these are two different numbers. Complex numbers always come in, imaginary numbers always come in pairs. So that's why you have a plus or minus. So it's both 1 plus I radical 14 divided by 3 and 1 minus I radical 14 over 3. So they always are going to come in pairs. So if I had like a different answer, let's say, for example, it's completely separate from this problem. If I had a different answer, if I had like 3 minus 2I, then the other solution is going to be 3 plus 2I. So the always going to come in conjugate form. That's why that's a plus or minus. So if I got 4 plus 5i, then also 4 minus 5i would also be another solution as well.